not. Okay, he's saying there, the shadow, what's the connection to the shadow of the Maimer was not, it's not a Dvar Halacha. The shadow of the Maimer is, what's the connection to the statement that a person shouldn't, and then he said, you reminded me with your question about the date palms in the Bovel, you reminded me of this inyan of this teaching of Adam Rishon. The conclusion of the Maimer is that the teaching of Adam Rishon that talks about Yishuv and not Yishuv is the inyan of mitzvahs aseh, mitzvahs leis aseh. That's what it means. It means the inyan of Ma'aseh b'Poel of halacha. That's in fact the deeper meaning of that teaching. And Adam is Adam HaKadmon. This is the Gzeira. The Deibishter was Geyser, where we should settle, where we should not. That's a euphemism for mitzvahs. Gzeira, where to settle is the mitzvahs aseh. Where not to settle is mitzvahs leis aseh. So that's the Ratzon Atzmi, that actually is the Ratzon Atzmi, which is expressed in halacha, not in other areas of Torah, which actually, as the whole teaching implies, settle and develop the world of the. Yeah, and it also underscores the Ma'aseh b'Poel, the Avodah, of Leis Aseh, Mitzvahs Aseh, in settling and making the world. That is the means by which we heal the Potter Adam. So let's see inside just a little bit overview of the Maimer. You have the page, Mochor? Yeah. Al Potter Adam. It is just a toichem. It's not even Novi, but it just strings it all together. So. That's right, I taught in Wager. Tenant house. I'm surprised you wouldn't have.
Completely couldn't deal with it. It was just that it was going about that. No idea. Hebrew dad is right. Got to his class and Wager. All of a sudden, I spoke to him. I spoke to all the other people. I didn't expect him. He heard me.
So it's tenant house.
Yeah, tenant house. Yeah. Right.
How many years ago? This is a long time ago.
Never mind my pet. Say Shema, you know, stuff like that.
Oh no, 1 second. No. This is the son. What I'm referring to taught math. He was a secular teacher.
Yeah, it's the second thing. This is in Wager.
Oh, okay. But you're saying the Shema.
You got Jimmy to say the Shema right in the second.
Oh.
You know,
I thought during this. Okay.
And he did. For you.
Yeah. Okay. That'll be the end of his career, probably. Yeah. His teaching career.
It might have been his last career. Yeah. People, right, a couple years later, I mentioned him.
Yeah. So his story is fascinating. How he became, how he was Niskarev, and his correspondence with the Rebbe, and the Rebbe danced with him some Chassidut. Early years. Yeah. Wow. That's a story that I should tell his son, Rafi. All right, let's have a look at the text there, yeah? So, how is it possible that one Jew should be separate from the other? Because that's the way it is between Hashem, between a person and his divine friend Hashem. In brackets, HaKadosh Baruch Hu v'Knesset Yisrael. Showing it is on the Shomer Lamaida Lamata, that's in the Shomer's descent. And how did it all begin? It all began with that Tzimtzum. The Tzimtzum is what created this sense or experience of separation. However, Kavonas HaTzimtzum B'Shvil HaGilui. The whole intent of the Tzimtzum is that there should be Gilui. Now, if it's to go back to the original Gilui, then what's been achieved? So, Loidak HaGilui Shai Lifnei HaTzimtzum. Prior to the Tzimtzum, as we explained, Eibishter manifested in the Seder, Bli Gvul as a virtue, Gvul as the opposite of virtue, less. That's what precedes the Tzimtzum is Gilui HaBli Gvul. Now the Tzimtzum is going to reveal the words of the Teichaniah. How you say is a Gabus Bli Gvul, dominated was Bli Gvul. Again, as a virtue, highest level. What's higher? Infinite is higher than finite. Bigger and bigger. They're incomparable. Of course, Hashem has the capacity for Gvul equally. Atzmos is equally beyond both. But the Gvul component is completely absorbed within, it's a latent, not manifested. If you would have manifested both equally at the outset, then there'd be no mile in one over the other. The whole point is to create a tachtim, a whole hierarchy of high and low. In order to create that, so you need to have the whole. To say there has to be that first Bli Gvul and then Gvul. It's present as God manifests His presence in a latent way, in a potential way. His powerful Gvul is also manifest, but completely lost. In other words, in the experience of Bli Gvul, someone's going to say Gvul, Gvul, that's concealment, limitation. This is Elikus, this is where it's at. But the Tzimtzum, the whole Avodah post-Tzimtzum, and even the Tzimtzum itself carries through latently. Lacha Tzimtzum Nasi is Galus Kreich HaGvul. The Tzimtzum causes first the emergence of Kreich HaGvul. The Kreich HaGvul, Kel B'Soiche, is calling out Bli Gvul. And here now the opposite, the Kreich HaGvul doesn't emerge as something separate. It's all Eibishter. Bli Gvul is there too. Now that Gvul is appreciated as being the equal expression of God, it's no less equal than Bli Gvul. Doesn't negate Bli Gvul. Bli Gvul originally kind of negated the value of Gvul. But once we into Avodah and bring out this Chiddush that in the Tachten, in the Gvul, that's also Him, that also obviously includes Him in Bli Gvul, no less. So this is all implanted in the whole infrastructure of Seder Shtalshalus. As he explained, the Kav is Mushrish, Lifnei Tzimtzum, and it comes in the Tzimtzum, and that whole part of the Maimah where the Eibishter has to, as it were, effect in Oyer against its Teva and Gvul against its Teva. In other words, he manifests Gvul and Bli Gvul, they're incompatible. Incompatible. Infinite and finite, and finite in the face of infinite has absolutely no value. Zero value. So we have to be, so that's the separation right there. So it has to be pale in order to effect ultimate unity in both of them against their nature. That the emergence of the Kelim happens dafka through Kreich HaBli Gvul is explained. Even though the Kelim have the Chodesh and the Rishimu, but it's the Oyer HaBli Gvul, like the Seichel chooses the Oisius that Mochor gave, that causes the emergence, these harvests of the Kelim. That's really against the nature of Oyer. Oyer is to manifest and spread, not to be contained in vessels. Yet the Oyer itself is the one, these words of the Kabbalah, the harvest, the Oyer thickens, as it were, and brings out Keli. That's really an atomistic property, which shouldn't happen. How do you get from infinite spreading finite you? It should not happen. And logically it doesn't. Logically, the way Hashem created things, logically, that there should be virtue and not virtue, high and low, Bli Gvul and Gvul. And once that's established, that was established because He manifested first Bli Gvul, not Atzmos, which is both, but only Bli Gvul. So there, Gvul is a chzara. So how does Bli Gvul get into Gvul? It can't. It's forever incompatible, infinite and finite. Never the twain shall meet. But right away, He did make them meet. By divine design, implanting in creation, our ability then to just simply access that and reveal it. To reveal the truth that's carried through all of Ishtalshalus and the unity of Oyer and Keli, that it's gvul and bligvul, and that's all him. But so it's now in ishtalshalis, but not overtly in ishtalshalis, because in ishtalshalis now, as we go down the line, it gets more and more gvul, more and more distant, further and further and further. Now within it all is this deep truth that Oren Keli, it's all him. But now that's now our avodah to reveal that. We don't have to change anything. We just have to reveal the essential truth that Ishtalshalos carries through. That's because, again, the Oyer itself causes the emergence of the Keli. The Keli itself receives the Oyer. The Keli itself becomes an expression for the Oyer, and the opposites fuse in this profound way. That to truly understand this, it's a never-ending understanding. We're getting some general sense of it. I would hope, I would assume. So the net result is that the kav already is this divine interplay of both Gilui and Gvul all at once. It's rooted in the Oyer Ein Sof, and yet it and retains that at every level. Its connection to Ein Sof is carried through at every level of the kav, all the way down to the bottom of Ishtalshalos. And yet, it's a kav, it's measure, it's keli, and it's the Oyer itself on each level that elicits the emergence of the keli. So again, this interplay of gvul and bligvul throughout Ishtalshalos. Ella, last paragraph here. So all is good. What do you need avodah for? It's been done. The fusion of Oyer and Keli, Gvul and Bligvul, Einid Mulvada is revealed in its perfection. But it's not. But as the whole thing manifests in Seder Shtalshalos, overtly we are getting this distant business. We're getting concealment. And it's a beifin shal yipater adam mechaveda. There is this taking leave. The way Ishtalshalos feels in its conscious experience, Atzilis is higher, Bria is low, Yitzir is lower still, Bria, Yitzir, etc. And there's Mitzir. The further down you go, the further Mitzir's independence emerges. So the Keli and the Oyer being one is not the conscious experience, although it's there in essence. So we need an Eitzah. What's the whole Eitzah? The Eitzah is Torah mitzvahs. They're like Gila, Tachlis, like Patna Chaveda, when you're not, that's Torah. Tam Shetzarech Li is Dvar Halacha, Dafka, why Dvar Halacha? Last line on that page. Ki B'Halachas Nimtza Rotzen El Yibagoli. That's where, as opposed to the other levels of Torah, Elu Velo Divrei Lekim Chayim, etc., which are all part of Ishtalshalos to some degree. The final ruling, that's the Rotzen El Yim. So we explain that it's determined not by who has the better argument, but by Bittul. There's a miskasha Rotzen Shalamat, Rotzen Aktoli Shalamayla. It seems here, the Rotzen Shalamata means the divine Rotzen. I was questioning, but that means our Rotzen. No, it means that see it here, and where they summarize it, it's clear that the Rotzen Shalamata is the final. This is what you do in halacha. It's a very specific little, as it were, do it this way. But this Rotzen Shalamata is rooted in Rotzen Akloli Shalamai, the general Rotzen Kloli of Atzmos, which is his desire for Dirib Tachtonim. Every mitzvah prati is connected to this essential Rotzen, Atzmos, which allows for, and it's only because of the true fusion of Gvul and Bligvul, Oyer and Keli, and the Yipoter, the distance completely dissolved. When we say Rotzen Shalamai Nishamas B'Yisrael Zachreu, this awakens. This is the Zachreu, the Zachroinus, summons forth the Rotzen Atzmi, which is in the Shamas Yisrael. Like we say Rosh Hashanah, Shagam la Krisis Bris Davrav Moishe Shebipnimius, even this Krisis Bris needs a Zikaron. It's forever there, and it's immutable. What is in his Zikaron? It's Behelim. So through the Krisis Bris, this is Megalit, and he's saying every mitzvah is the affirmation of this Krisis Bris. That's what it does. The Dvar Halacha constantly calls, summons forth the eternal covenant and bond that which exists between the Eibush and the Shamas Yisrael, and summons it forth even in Zeicher Abris of Noach, even in Dvarim Gashmim down here in this world, which is the point. Dire B'tachtonim. Messiah and the Gemara concluded there. At the Karta Milza, he reminded me, he said, of the teaching of Koler Shegozel Od Marisha LeYishuv Nisyashva, Koler Shegozel Od Marisha LeYishuv LeNisyashva, without repeating that whole Torah. Shebaklol the same Shnei in Yoni Avodah. So that is a Dvar Halacha. Nisyashva is Asay Torah, LeNisyashva is Sumira. Shein Dai Belimud Dvar Halacha Bilvad. So I don't have to learn the Halacha. Ladavat Tzarech Lis, Menimshak Am David Bepearl. It's got to come down in Avodah, and that's settle or not settle. That's making the Dire B'tachtonim. So the bottom line conclusion is that overcoming the tzimtzum is through the separation between a Yid and Hashem overtly. And the separation between a Yid and another Jew, it's all overt. The Pnimis is not possible. The whole point is to reveal the Pnimis B'chitzonius. Al Yipater Adam Mechaveiroi. How do we do that is by drawing on Atzmos. Where is Atzmos invested in Torah? It's Dafke in Halacha. That's the pure expression of the Ratzon Atzmi, is in the halachic dimension of Torah. And even in halacha, it's not just enough to learn the halacha, but actually implemented by Ma'aseh B'Peil, which is underscored by the teaching of Yishuv and not Yishuv. Mitzvahs aseh, mitzvahs lo aseh. Settle, not settle. Right, that's the general outline. Right, we need to learn it over and over again, but get a general idea. Yeah, we'll begin now. The next Maimon. Chaim, good morning. Okay, so this might we have a copy of it. I sent you also. Shabbos Parshas Toldos, Mevarch Chodesh ve'erev Chodesh Kyslev, Tavshin Chof Aleph. So the Maimon begins with the opening pasuk of the Haftarah, which we read last week, when Shabbos is Erev Rish Chodesh. So just to get the story, remind ourselves of the story. The story there is that King Shaul is becoming increasingly jealous, agitated by David HaMelech's, his sons-in-law success. And Yonasan, the son of Shaul, David HaMelech's dear soulmate friend. By the way, obviously, as we're going to see in Al-Maimer, the Nekuda is Bittul, which is expressed by Yonasan. Usually David is the embodiment of Bittul because he's Malchus, the Levana. But Yonasan, he's the crown prince. He would have been the natural heir. But Hashem already told Shmuel that would be David, and he is completely supportive of this in the greatest way. Not only he holds no grudge, but he's supportive of his friend becoming the next, the future king. So anyway, the story there is that Shaul is becoming increasingly agitated. So the two of them devise a test to see whether indeed David HaMelech's life is in mortal danger, which it was. And what was it? So Yonasan says to David, tomorrow is Rish Chodesh, there'll be the Suda, and you don't show up. You will be noticed or remembered because your place is missing. And let's see how my father reacts to your absence. So the first day he asked, he was told that David, he didn't say anything. No reaction, things were fine. But the second day, Shaul asks, where's David? And he was told that he is with his family in Beis Lechem, being in Korbanos, and he flies into a rage, and he's deserved of death, and is furious with Yonasan as well. So how is Yonasan now going to convey this message? So he told him to go and hide there by this Evan or Ezel. Some say it was some common farshim say it was a sign point on the road to this way, that way. And he'll go out there with his archery, with his servant, and shoot the 3 arrows. So David is hiding there, listening to what Jonathan is saying to his assistant. If he says to him, the arrows are by the side of you, close, then all is well. He tells him, no, the arrow is further, then all is not well, and you flee for your life, which is what happens at the end. He sends him back. The innocent sends back his Eved. They emerge and embrace each other and part ways. Not forever. They'd meet again only one more time, and that would be the final meeting. Just by the way, it's a beautiful sikh of the Rebbe in this whole thing here, that David HaMelech wanted to know the real issue here was if we're ready for Geula or not. For many potential states. The bow and arrow is the symbol of Golas, because the arrow you pull back, it's a paradox. By pulling the arrow back, that's what propels it forward. So that's Golas. Dafke in Golas causes the Aliyah. So has the Rida been enough already? So if he tells him that the Aliyah is right by you, it's at your side, we've arrived. But if he says the arrow has gone further, there's still greater heights that we still have to achieve, then you know that we're not ready, and there's more Veda to be done. Okay, so that's the general background. Let's learn now the Maimon. And he was already his son-in-law at this point. He'd married Michal. And he earned that because the king promised anybody who defeats Goliath will marry his daughter. So this was already years earlier. She protects him too. Earlier, so Yonasan said to David HaMelech, Mochor, Chodesh, tomorrow is Chodesh. And it'll be the Suda, and you will be remembered, because your place will be empty. It'll be noticed. We have to understand, the Lashon here is very, very strange. Now, the two opposite things. You're going to be remembered because your place is absent. Nifkadata means you're going to be remembered, your presence is there, summoned, recalled, like we say in the Yalaviyova, be pocket, be Zochet, may you remember, and the two Lashon is there for remembering. Remember us on His Chodesh. Bless us. And likewise, Hashem remembered Sarah, and she was blessed with this child. That's what V'nifkadata means. But the end of the next words are while you be remembered, because you won't be there. But we find that also in Matis after battling there with Midjan, no man was missing. So how can one word convey the opposite? Zikara means you remember someone, even someone is not there, by remembering him, so you are making his presence felt. It's the opposite of a lack. We're talking about him, we're mentioning, we're remembering him. The fact that the Pasuk puts the two together, it's really one thing. And how is it possible that this it could mean one thing? Chsaron and the opposite of chsaron. Not there and there. But especially the question becomes stronger when we appreciate that the Pasuk says you'll be remembered key because your pocket, your place is empty. It's the empty place that makes your presence there. The Pirush Tevas key when it's in a stam, it's a reason. The reason of the remembering, which is presence, is because your presence will not be there. The reason why you will be remembered is because of your very absence. So the first question is not on the Loshen. It's not on the Loshen. The first question is on the Teichen Advarim. Because the second question is going to be the language. So let's get the two questions clear. The Nyonim Havchim. So in Inyan he's asking. In Inyan, the question is two opposite things, lacking and remembering. The pasuk is saying it's one thing. It's the lack that causes the presence. So it's a question in Teichen Advarim. The Oidzo is now the question is the Lashon. So let me just correct that. Shebeza and Yonim has ikorim v'achsarim, these two things of remembering and absence. Nem Rabbeisa Lashon, the very same words. There's many choice of words that could express remembering. Niskarta, for example. V'niskarta. So yet the pasuk Dafka wants to mention zikaron using a word, the same word, yet you pocket, which is used to convey his lack. So the first question is more the teichen in yanim. The second is it's alarming that we dafka use, but there's other array of words to choose. Dafka, a word. The word chosen, the word remember, is not the common word, but the same word that also means to be absent, which further points to it's one thing. Because it's not just a teichen, because you're not there, you will be remembered, but the fact that the words are the same, that further underscores that it's one inyan. And one depends on the other. It's only through the absence that the presence is truly there. What does this mean? To be explained. Which he does right now. The general union is what's the whole thing over here? We're talking about Erev Reish Chodesh. That's when this discussion between Yonasan and David took place. That's why we say this haftarah on the Shabbos Erev Reish Chodesh. Just by the Mefarshim Masech, so this also explains. Now the whole point is that the haftarah has to have a connection with the parsha. So we dismissed the haftarah of the parsha. Let me address this once actually, because of the opening pasuk. The whole take has nothing to do with it. The opening happens to be that tomorrow is Reish Chodesh. And there'll be a Suda, and we'll see how Shaul reacts. And so that's reason enough to dismiss the regular haftarah. So the answer is, as we said before, really, that this whole thing is a geula dialogue over here. And what's Reish Chodesh all about? Yidna compared to the Levana, our renewal, an ultimate renewal is a geula, is the geula. We go through we wax and wane throughout Golas. But then finally, so every Erev Reish Chodesh, which is the renewal of the moon, which represents and is expressive of the renewal of Klal Yisrael and the hope, as we say when we Mekadesh Levana, that this will lead to the ultimate renewal. So we read this whole story of Yonasan and David because that's who the players, Malchus, Yonasan's Mashpia, Zoh, Malchus, and their unity and their wonders as expressed by Shaul. It's all these dynamics are at play. The most appropriate haftarah for the renewal of every month. When it's the Shabbos just before Reish Chodesh. At any rate, so let's see in the Maimah here. So what's Reish Chodesh is connected with the moon cycle. How does it work? From the middle of the month, going further, the moon diminishes. The end of the month is completely concealed. The moon is reborn as Chodesh. And this is the difference between the sun's cycle and the moon cycle. The journey literally The sun is always shining. But the moon waxes and wanes, so it gets small, and then it's reborn. That the birth of the moon happens only after its previous concealment. It disappears. So the nations of the world, their year is a solar year. They just divide it into 12 parts. But the Chinese actually not. They have a real lunar year. A real lunar year. Yeah, which is why their holidays, you would know, the holidays keep on falling back, 30 days against the seasons. The holidays aren't seasonal. Yeah, they can have their holiday over the course of 19 years. It goes through all of the cycles. The only exception. Interesting also, the Chinese language, the words, it's the only language where the words, the letters actually are pictures. They convey what they're drawing. Also, simple Lashon HaKodesh, which is not just a word that happens to mean cup, but the word kois, also, the teichen means cup. There's an interesting parallel there. Huh? The Muslim calendar is it also purely lunar? Yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe. I'm not sure. Maybe there's some compensation there. Yeah, it does move also. At any rate, so Yidden count the Levana because they are the Levana. Kamayim Merazal, as Abish says in the Gemara, when Hashem diminished the moon, so to appease it, originally they were both Moedes HaGedolim, so he told him, Liklu Tzadikai Bishmecha, the Tzadikim will be called in your name, David HaKotan, and so on. So Yidden are called an analogous to the Levana. So therefore, Shedavke de Helam Va'Bitl, so just like the Levana only is reborn through its previous concealment and disappearance, likewise, Yidden, V'nafsheka Falakil, only when my soul is like earth before all shall be, which we say every day in the Shemon Esrei, Bitl Hayesh, Vatal Bitl B'Metzias, that's Bitl Hayesh, it's still dust, but that's not, there's even Bitl B'Metzias, they said, Dafke, Morim V'Kodesh Eshkoin. Hashem says that where do I dwell? The pasuk, the context is the Shval Ruach, the humble spirit. That's where the exalted and holy one says, "I will dwell." The Yavish Mitzadatzim Morim V'Kodesh, even though the Eibush is Morim V'Kodesh, Mekamokim Eshkoin es Daka v'Shval Ruach. Where does he dwell? Where do I dwell? Says Hashem is Daka, the crushed one, v'Shval Ruach, and the humble spirit. Pasuk in Yeshaya. The Mochor Chodesh. So this is the whole Pnimius, what's going on here. Tomorrow is Rosh Chodesh. Tomorrow is the renewal. This is the renewal that comes after the concealment of Rosh Chodesh. So that's the meaning here, that you will be remembered because of your absence. Your birth happens dafka because of your bittul. That's the general answer, which the Maimon is going to explain in great, exquisite depth. That's the reason that the Shulchan Aruch brings, that men of good deeds fast Erev Rosh Chodesh, every Erev Rosh Chodesh. What's the fasting? That's the bittul. There's a bittul tshuva, there's a nimshach hagil de Mochor Chodesh, which is the achana for tomorrow, is Rosh Chodesh, the emergence of the Levana, the renewal, the rebirth of the Levana. And this, the Maimon is going to explain in great detail, in great depth. Praise Hashem. Continue tomorrow.